Our sermon text this morning is from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 20, verses 1 through 16. For those of you that are reading in the Pew Bibles, that starts on page 21 in the New Testament. Listen now for the word of the Lord. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. And about 5 o'clock he went out and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I want, what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." You can always tell when it's summertime in Arthurdale. One difference, of course, is the temperature. During the winter months, I'm usually bundling up to come out here. Then summer comes, and I get here, run inside, and immediately try to turn the air conditioner on. And then turn it off immediately when worship starts, and hope I don't have heat stroke. Probably anyone who listens to my sermons notices I talk faster. I could also tell it's summer this week when I was here by myself because it was strangely quiet. The kids aren't here anymore. All those fetch kids who come over here after school during the school year. The staff downstairs and I have taken to imitating the tone of the complaints that the kids come running to the adults with. "He's touching me. I was playing with that toy and he took it from me. Tell him to stop doing that. Miss Andrea, Miss Dorinda." I hope that I don't sound like I hate children, because I certainly don't. I like having them here, and I'm struck by their sense of fairness. Kids have a much stronger sense of right and wrong than we give them credit for. And it kind of reminds me of my own childhood and the conversations I'd have at church or Cub Scouts or in school about how the way things are supposed to work. Surely you all remember going to your own parents or teachers or having kids come to you when you had kids with complaints like these. "He cut in front of me in line. Why did she get more than me? Her parents let her go to the mall. Why can't I go?" That might come a little later. Jesus' parable today reminds me a bit of some of these complaints. That first set of workers, the ones hired earliest in the morning, they sound a lot like some children or even adults who I've known. But then they seem to have a point, don't they? They've worked and sweated all day in the hot Middle Eastern sun. Believe me, Israel gets really hot during the day in the summer, and gotten the same paycheck as the other workers who show up later than they did. And after all, what would you think if you'd put in a full day's work outside while a coworker strolls in late and gets the same paycheck that you do? When I was in college, I spent a couple of summers, spent a couple of summers working at the high school that I'd gone to, helping the custodial staff clean everything up in preparation for the following school year. The building didn't have any air conditioning, and of course the windows were shut, and it was really, really hot. We complained enough about the heat as it was, but if somebody had started showing up an hour before the workday ended and getting the same paycheck that the rest of us did, there'd have been serious complaints. We're conditioned to assume that we get exactly what we deserve, and so we have to earn everything that we get. If someone else is getting off easy, getting what we're getting for seemingly less effort, something is off kilter. The system is broken. But Jesus tells us that in the kingdom of heaven, nothing is owed to us, and everything is given freely, beyond what any of us could ever hope to deserve or expect. So in a lot of cases, ideas of fairness are thrown out the window. Jesus often makes points by setting up a common situation and then breaking our expectations for that situation. It's important to realize that this story is really about the way things work in the kingdom of heaven and not actual employment. Those employment questions, I should note, get handled elsewhere. The Old Testament has instructions for allowing the poor to glean in a field and pick up whatever little scraps haven't already been harvested. And there are all kinds of other rules for making sure that the poor get cared for reasonably. But then Paul's letters suggest that we should, out of a sense of decency, work to support ourselves and contribute to society. That's a whole other question that Jesus isn't taking up in this story. This story, as I said, isn't talking about actual payment for actual work. He's talking about the free grace that we're all given by God. That grace is given to all, with no question of deserving it or earning it. And yet we sometimes come to this story and to church, and to God's kingdom, with questions of whether there's going to be enough grace, enough of God to go around to everyone. And so we end up with questions about payment or making room. Our assumption that if one person gets something, somebody else misses out on it, just doesn't hold true in this case. God has more than enough grace to go around to everyone. It's limitless. And so those in the story who were the first but became last don't really get gypped. They, as well as the others, get what they agreed to and what they needed. God's grace is indeed big enough for all, as long as we don't look at it as getting what we've earned. You've probably all heard of C.S. Lewis, the author, wrote Christian works like Mere Christianity and the Narnia books for children. The first 3 have been turned into movies. I'm annoyed that they haven't continued with the 4th, but that's another story too. He also wrote something called The Great Divorce. It's basically a story about a man who has a dream about going to hell and finding that the souls there get to take a sort of a bus trip, like a day trip, to heaven for one more chance to stay there if they want to. Many of them, though, exclude themselves from heaven because they're expecting to get repaid. They feel that they've been treated unjustly for not being there to begin with. When these people get to heaven, they look like ghosts. There's one in particular whose name isn't learned, but who's referred to as the big ghost, who is very offended that somebody he knew has already gotten into heaven, but he hasn't. This is the big ghost's response. "Look at me now," said the ghost, slapping its chest, but the slap made no noise. "I gone straight my whole life. I don't say I was a religious man, and I don't say I had no faults. Far from it. But I done my best all my life, see? I done my best by everyone. That's the sort of chap I was. I never asked for anything that wasn't mine by rights. If I wanted to drink, I paid for it. And if I took wages, I done my job, see? That's the sort I was, and I don't care who knows it. I'm asking for nothing but my rights. You may think you can put me down because you're dressed up like that, which you weren't when you worked under me. And I'm only a poor man. But I got to have my rights, same as you, see?" The spirit who he's talking to responds this way. "Oh no, it's not so bad as that. I haven't got my rights, or I should not be here. You will not get yours either. You'll get something far better, never fear. Only be happy and come with me." It's really no use, with God's grace, counting what you deserve, counting what somebody else has gotten. We're asked to accept that there's enough for everyone, and you'll get the grace that you need. And it'll be more than you could have really ever asked for. Jesus is telling us that the kingdom of heaven is big enough for all who want to enter. And yet, we're left with the jealousy of that early shift. For some people, the inclusive grace of God seems to be offensive, because we always like to establish our rank in the pecking order, which ceases to exist in the kingdom of heaven. Those first workers who became last come to the owner complaining about the way that the newer arrivals were treated. I see shades of the big ghost's indignation, not to mention the jealousy of the older brother in the story of the prodigal son. It comes to, I think, why is he getting off so easy? If he who messed things up so badly and is forgiven so easily, why aren't I given even more? But the landowner's response is very important. "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I'm generous?" That phrase, "take what belongs to you and go," is telling. Someone actually gets fired, more or less, there. Not for incompetence, but for begrudging the same grace that he's already been given. We're given what we need by God, and we're given it because God is gracious. We're asked to show that same kind of grace that we've been shown. And we're asked to show that grace in God's kingdom and in the church. We get attached to certain people being in the church, but we're asked to remember that the church is for everyone. And we should all be gracious because God is gracious, or none of us would be here. There's often a temptation to judge the new people, wonder why they're here. Other times, we start asking questions if a new person is getting involved with things. Wait a minute, why are they an elder? They've not been here that long. This isn't the way we used to do things. Sometimes the new people are treated like those people in the parable who were hired at the 11th hour. But then they say that they're standing around doing nothing all day because no one has hired them. That's interesting. I used to pass that over as just a detail of the story. But I'm wondering if Jesus isn't trying to tell us something even there. No one hired them. Maybe nobody has shown God's love to them yet. They're just standing around waiting to see it before they head out to the field too and get to work. Our willingness to show grace can go a long way. It can go a long way towards getting the work of the church done and showing God's love to those people that haven't seen it yet. We can do a lot as long as we don't trip over ourselves trying to make sure that we've already gotten what we deserve. Amen.